Welcome fellow Airsoft players and enthusiasts, channel host Marshmallow. And in this series we are going to be tackling the Krytac LMG, more specifically the upgrades that we're going to put into it. This will be a multi-part series, but a great one nonetheless, so stick around. In the previous video I spoke about the diagnostics and sometimes errors can come up. Well, I actually had one come up, and under the diagnostics here that shows the GND, Aster did not detect the sector gear. But when you go in here, this tells you all of the possible things and what you can do about them. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to try clearing this first and seeing if that'll do. So to be able to do that, what you have to do is right here when you click on this, you see the three little bubbles here. When you click on this and it says clear DTC, you hit that. Alright, so now that is clear and we are good to go on that. Now before we get into that, if you can hit the subscribe button, hit the like, leave your comments. They're important to me. It helps give me some good feedback on things that I can improve or things that you all liked. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
So now that we have our error, we can get an idea of what the Aster is trying to tell us. And in this case, it has something to do with the sector gear, or the sensor for it, and your motor. Now in this case, I was already able to test the motor before I got to this stage, so I can rule out right away that the motor is fine. However, I at least checked the connections to make sure that the positive and or negative weren't compromised. So that was done. Next we focus on the sector gear. Now in this case it's either you've got too many shims, not enough shims, you know, the sensor on the Aster could be dirty or damaged, etc., etc. In a previous test, when I was checking the shims and everything, the sector gear did actually trip that sensor in the program. So right there I was able to rule out that the shims were an issue or the sensors were an issue, which thus led us to the sector gear jamming. Now with that, there's about 4 things that can cause it to jam outside of your shims. It could be any of the previous 3 gears, being your spur gear, your bevel gear, or the pinion gear on your motor. Any one of those could be having some type of hang-up that would thus cause your sector gear to jam. And with taking your gearbox apart, you can test those gears to see if they're free spinning, and if they're all free spinning, no issue, and you know your shims are good, that leads you to the last thing. And what is your sector gear ultimately doing? It is pulling back your piston. And this is at the stage that I was able to discover that that aftermarket piston that I had was just too big for that Krytac gearbox, to where the piston was literally getting pinched inside that gearbox and would not physically move. So once I was able to figure that out, then I took that piston out and put the stock piston back in, and it was able to work fine. So I cleared the error, checked all that, and we were good to go. So these are sometimes can be a very upsetting and head scratching and fist pounding kind of things that can come up, but don't let it get the best of you, and you know, try to think a little outside the box with it. Or even there's the Aster company, you can email them. I did actually in fact email them. They got back to me pretty quickly, but once I had diagnosed the problem myself, I emailed them back, let them know it was not the actual Aster that was the issue. There's also forums via Facebook and everything else, so there is multiple avenues, but I at least wanted to post this as one error that did come up and what the solution ultimately was.